All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. I see people coming in. I see Luigi. See Luigi lurking around. See Kara. Hi, Kara. Um, awesome, awesome. Just watching some sort of combination of daily stand-up and feedback loop. The feedback loop channels. Just waiting for Couchbot to fire to make sure people have the link so that we can get this train heading out of the station. Hope things are going really well where you're at. It was interesting, having yesterday was feedback loop free. And I like having feedback loop every day if possible. But I was able to make use of that time and write more than I normally would. It's really interesting. The writing process for me, it's like it takes me a day or so to wrap my head around a topic and kind of get going with it. And I'm enamored with how journalists who write every day, sometimes they're writing multiple stories per day, and I'm often struck with their ability for output. But the stories that I have to remind myself that the stories they're writing aren't meant to be visited over time in a way that the stuff that I'm creating here for the students is. If you're if you're using this material, my hope is that you can come back to this like it's a book over time and use it for projects and things like that. Most news stories aren't written with that sort of return factor in mind. They're meant to inform you about something that's happening right at the moment. So it's a little different, but I still am blown away by the volume that most writers produce. So Couchbot has fired though, so you know what that means. It's time. It's time for the feedback loop. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. So good to have you back. Get my tiny hand out. Yay. Actually, it's like a roller coaster. It's like, yay. Can't really see that because I turned from you. Okay. You get the idea. Today we've got Luigi's in. Luigi's starting a new project. He's trying to get synced up with an NGO, or not an NGO, but a group that's trying to have conversations with NGOs about tracking COVID-19 through refugee camps. Very big problem. And I sometimes refer to camps, prisons, and factories as cruise ships on land. Or I have been. I probably haven't mentioned that here, but I really do consider these things to all be like cruise ships, except they are literally on land, which means that you can have a lot more of them in the middle of your population centers. So it's an interesting project. We're going to look at some of the things that he's thrown over the wall. Also, Katie's back. Katie's back. All right. Is that Backstreet or is that NSYNC? I think it's Backstreet. Anyway, she's working on her prototype, so we're going to take a look at her first attempts there, as she rapidly begins to migrate toward UI. Very excited, Katie. Very excited. So let's get started. There's no reason to dabble here, and I want to start with Luigi, mainly because Luigi's got a meeting that appears to be, I would guess, this morning, or it says today, so it could have already. Well, I doubt it's already happened because it's just 10 a.m. there in New York. But that said, he's basically, so the team that he's working with, there's a data scientist, there are NGO professionals, so people who like know these organizations, and there's also a UX designer from ByteDance, um, and ByteDance is part of TikTok's AI lab. So that's a very interesting person to have access to. Um, so and they're based in China, so they're trying. Luigi's going to be trying to sync up with somebody from China 2 to 4 hours a week to collaborate with. Those are the types of people that you get a chance to cross pollinate ideas with during when you take part in a project like this. Yeah, sure, Figma. We'll update that. Um, Now, one of the concerns that Luigi has, and I think it is rooted in the right place. Figma, thank you. Um, is the length of the questionnaire. Um, so Luigi says here the initial survey seemed like a basis. The initial questionnaire seemed like a basis for our first survey, which could be sent to NGOs we are already in contact with. We could also code call. I thought this was something that we could send through SurveyMonkey, and um, their initial questionnaire is quite rather lengthy, and I was concerned it may deter people from filling it out. Um, I I agree, and let's take a look at it because it's a monster. Um, so the question is, where do you cut it? So I want to kind of look at this because this is a common problem, especially when you jump into projects and they may not, they may be thinking about surveys a little differently than you are. Um, so when you're talking with this team, I think the way I'd position it would be, um, you know, I typically look at surveys as a way to filter that we've got the right people, and then then we're basically using it to build a cohort. Okay, a research cohort, group of people we can go back to with questions. We can use them for interviews. We can use them for testing the product that we build. I don't necessarily look at this as some form of data that I use just by itself. Okay, so I really would, what I want to do is I want to just kind of go through here. Obviously, getting their name, getting their organization name. It says what's your organization's focus, and that bit of information is nice. What's your role or responsibility? Um, uh, how big is your team? I don't necessarily know if I need that answer. What is the job title of the person responsible for managing projects like AI for Good Simulator? Um, I'm not even sure they would know that. Like this is your point of contact, and I would ask to follow up with them. Because like the job title, like that's going to require some sort of follow up anyway. So like I would consider striking that. Let's move down though. Which camp or geographical area? Uh, so where does your camp? Where's your organization Where does your organization operate? What type of refugee settlement is this? Um, how many displaced people inhabit this area at the moment? How big is the area in square kilometers? What are the demographics for the following age groups? And I'm guessing this is like, um, can you give me the percentage breakdown? What percentage of inhabitants have pre-existing conditions? And like I don't necessarily know like this breakdown of pre-existing conditions, like am I likely to know that 5% of my refugees have kidney disease? I think you're I think they're going too in the weeds with the percentages. Um, I I don't think somebody sitting down to fill the survey out is going to have that available right away. I think that's more of a, you know, what percentage of inhabitants have pre-existing conditions, and I think if you ask that question by itself and didn't have the 11 options, and they could just say probably 50%, half, 75%. I think that you would be much closer to getting an answer out of them. When I see, what percentage of things, and then there's 11 things you're expecting me to tell you, I think that that's just that becomes a really steep climb. So I would simply stay away from it. So that's one area where I would consider, like, hey, and like smoker. A lot of people smoke in refugee camps. You could I imagine this number is probably close to 99% by the time you add all this stuff up. So if that's the case, if we're going in with that as the default, why even ask the question? Like, we know a lot of inhabitants of refugee camps have pre-existing conditions. I think that's if that's known, then I don't even know why you need. I don't know why you need the question. Maybe that's a follow up for an interview. Um, what is the existing medical infrastructure that can be converted into isolation and treatment facilities? Um, Specify name, purpose, capacity, square space. I think you got to simplify the question. Do you have existing medical infrastructure that can be converted into isolation treatment or facilities? Yes, no. Like, part of a survey is ordering the information in such a way that you're you're allowing them to answer it with the knowledge that they have. I you know I Why would it be important to? I get why it would be important to know the capacity that you would have for this conversion. I don't know why you would need the name. Um, so let's continue looking here. Tell us how your area is preparing for COVID-19. Do you have any confirmed cases in your area? Yes. If yes, how many? That's a fine question. Which preventative measures have already been taken to combat COVID-19 in your area? Social distancing, limited lockdown, reduced travel, no measures at all. It's kind of that's kind of interesting because it says which preventative measures are already taken, and then does your organization participate in any of these measures? I think I would flip it and just say, does your organization participate in any preventative measures? Like the area, like that's how do you define area? Are you talking about the camp? Or are you talking about the area around the camp? So I might take it away from that and focus on, okay, what is your organization doing for the camp? All right, forget about the other, because they may not be able to talk about the details of the others because they don't have access. Again, this all comes back to, do I have access to that information? Because if I don't, I'm going to like lock up on that. If not, which organizations are responsible for that in your area? I'm just looking for, are they participating in social distance? Are they participating in preventative measures? Yes or no? If not, I just need to know if they're doing something. Lower the bar. They may not know who's responsible for it. If yes, which activities are which activities are your this is missing a word, your organization taking part in? I think that's fine. That's like, yes, select all that apply. How much time does your organization spend on these activities? how important. So 21 answers 20. In that, how important is the issue of COVID-19 outbreak to your organization? It's very important. I guarantee the corollary between very important and either and somewhere between 50 to 100% of time. And I'm not sure how you can have 100% and more, because you don't have that. That's not a number and more, but that's not something that exists. You have 100% of time. That's it. Um, so I would strike 20 and just focus on 21. COVID-19 is important to us, but we have other priorities. We got to get legal support to these people. Like, again, 21 answers 20. So kill 20, stick with 21. And I hope that, like, I haven't struck a lot of questions, but what I have done, what I am suggesting is that we simplify what we're asking. For instance, this: what percentage of inhabitants have pre-existing health conditions? That's one where I look at that and I go, okay, if I just boil that down to, do you know do your do you know well, actually, get rid of the individual categories. Just say what percentage of inhabitants have pre-existing conditions, and give a space. Like, don't do the diabetes, cancer, heart disease. Like, yes, those are all pre-existing conditions. Got it. Are you talking 50%? Are you talking 99%? I don't think we need the, like, 11 options, and I've got to, like, break out the abacus to tell you what percentage of 100 goes into this. So again, shortening things like that, striking things like this. And let's see. How many COVID-19 cases do you think your area can handle without it leading to a disaster? Which interventions do you think are feasible to combat the spread of COVID-19 in your area? Like 22, I don't even know if that's a question that you need to. I mean, is it one? And that comes back to, like, how many people can you isolate at once? I don't know if 22 is necessary. I think which interventions do you think are feasible? I think that's taking a temperature of the water. Which interventions do you think are the most effective among the ones that you think are feasible? I think you could just simplify that. Which intervention do you think would be most feasible to combat the spread of COVID-19 in your area? And that way, I mean, you just, like, okay, select one of these, and in selecting one of those, they answer 24. And I don't think you have to get the specific reasoning behind it. You want to talk to these people. You want to that's something that you ask and you follow up with them. You're trying to get them to actually complete this thing. And if it's just like, yeah, give me these 30 questions, and God, I don't know how many questions there are really here, but there's lots. So how do you think these interventions could be implemented? What do you think who do you think should be responsible for making these interventions more effective? What are the major barriers that stop the above organizations from implementing effective interventions? The last two are very interesting in that they're just guesses. it's county authorities and they lack funding. I guess it's opinion. It's like I don't necessarily know how much you gain from that. Um, how do you think these how do you think how do you think how do you think how do you think um, how do you think who do you think um, I think asking how do you think interventions should be implemented was smart. Um, I think if it's through local community leaders, you like are saying who do you think should be responsible? Well, it's probably local community leaders. I think I'd strike 26, and then what major barriers stop um, the implementation of interventions. Like, if you want to ask 27, you just rephrase it. 26 is kind of a repeat of 25. Describe solution. So now you're asking them, do you think AI for Good simulator would be a fit for them? And the question is, you're basically asking them at this point, would they be interested in knowing more? And at no point do I see us asking to, you know, can we contact you? Can we follow up with you? You haven't asked for an email. Maybe that's gathered from SurveyMonkey. But I don't know. I don't know if I would go here yet. I think I would gather this information. I think I'd split this into two surveys. Might send them a thank you that follows up with, hey, we're working on this thing, and hey, thanks for participating in the NGO COVID-19 survey conducted by AI for Good. AI for Good is trying to combat the issue. We're building an interactive dashboard that allows decision makers to set parameters for their camp and run simulations, run the simulation process accordingly. And then you basically, after really focusing on the product, you then ask them to fill this out. I think the problem here is you're asking a lot of questions that kind of help you understand the scope of their problem, and then you're coming back and saying, yeah, hey, by the way, we've got a thing, and you've got these questions, and I'm like, I think this is a second survey, and again, I am trying to lighten the load. I think there are ways to simplify this first survey to lead to more people actually finishing it, because if I've got to fill out all of this, there's just gonna be a lot of people that are like, I'm really busy. I've got people I've got to attend to here. I'll come back to it, and then they never come back to it. So I think if you can get this whittled down, even 10-20% is better than the current length, Luigi. So I'd really focus on talking them off a ledge on some of these, particularly the ones that seem to double up on themselves. Like, how do you think these interventions should be implemented? Oh, local military or outreach through local community leaders. Who do you think should be responsible? Well, you just answered that. Hospitals and medical facilities, local healthcare. Like, So anywhere that you're asking double questions, and focus, tell them, listen, you're asking the same basic question twice. Is there a reason we're doing this and making this thing longer? And also, it gives you the sense that I've already answered this. Why am I getting this question again? Like, when people feel like you're not listening, like, oh, I answered that question, and then you ask it again, and as a user, I'm like, I don't know if they're really, I don't know if this is really registering. I just answered a question, almost the same question, like that, but they didn't listen to it. So I'm just gonna bounce. And I think I think this, in its current form, this is gonna lead to a lot of bouncing. So um, that's my take on it. I see that you've got a call coming up with them. I'm hoping it goes well. I would simply point out that your goal is to get them as many completed surveys as possible, and here's some spots where you'd make some cuts. And I do believe that this is good. That they have some NGO connections where they can stimulate these conversations and get that going, because these would be the stakeholders. But without those questionnaires being filled out, you have no cohort really to build. Now, if they feel like they don't need a cohort because they've already got 20 NGOs signed like to work with, then the survey takes on a slightly different tone. But I don't look at surveys as data in and of itself. I look at the interviews, and here these would be stakeholder interviews. Stakeholder interviews and user interviews are kind of merging here, because the stakeholders are the users. But there's other stakeholder interviews here as well, like the other people on your team, particularly the data science. Like there are people on your team that I apologize. There are people on your team that I would dive in deeper with to get a better sense of their connection with the project. And I think that I think if you can get this part discussed and out of the way, shortening that up, I think that would be a great first step to take. And then you can get into the other aspects of this. So I wish you luck there. Let us know how it goes. And now let's go over here and take a look at Katie. Because Katie has, she's having some trouble. It's not giving me the option to have the delays. So I'm not sure what interactions to use on some of them. When I started connecting frames, I realized even more stuff was missing. No shock. So I added some new frames as well. And yeah, that's right. When you go through the process of creating this, turning this into a prototype, and as you can see, like, here's her wireframe. That's where we started. Now the prototype, it's grown in size because you need these different options. That's naturally going to happen. Let's see if we can spot where Katie is having issues, and obviously you're connecting things along, and you were talking about delays. So on click, navigate to, the animation is instant, and that's fine. Let's see, navigate to, we're going to menu, on click. Okay, so after delay, I'm trying to sort out where the after delay could be. Yeah, this is where while hovering. Um, no problem, Luigi. I'm glad you were able to ride along there. It's a really interesting dilemma because I think their questions are valuable, and ultimately I would emphasize that for them. Your questions are valuable. I think they're going to be difficult to answer because you're asking for a high cognitive load out of people who have very little connection. If these were people they already knew, like, yeah, I'm gonna send this survey over to this person that I worked with for 10 years and get their opinion. That's a different survey. That's somebody that you have a connection with, and it operates almost like a stakeholder interview, just in written form. But if you don't know the people, like, you've got to lower it significantly, otherwise they're gonna bounce. They have no connection with you. Yes, you're trying to help, but they're busy. Like, it's nothing personal. They're just busy. So let them know that the questions are valid, but to get the most out of these people, you need to, like, have them complete the survey. Otherwise, the more people that drop off, the less effective the less effective things are in on the whole. Regarding Katie, back to Katie. Regarding your delay, I'm trying to determine, like, exactly. So I'm trying to determine what is happening here. So it says while hovering over sign in, I go to this, and yeah, you know what? Instead of I'm struggling to find the one thread here. So I would say that I'm gonna ask some questions about specifically um, that, like, I don't know where. It's hard for me to determine where something isn't showing up, so I need more detail there. But let's go in and just look at this as it's functioning right now. I'm gonna start the prototype, and we will see how it nets out. It's also helpful to come over and still have this so I can look at. Um, okay, so I'm going to go through the create account flow. All right. So here we are in Fresh Market. Um, I can view the menu. I can see how it works. I can see the feed. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And I need to create an account. So here I'm going to create an account. I need to be able to fill these in. Like, as I click, it should fill that information in. And then once I get to create account, like, I'm trying to click and it's not taking me forward. There should be a natural place that this lands on the other side, and I'm guessing that if we look at create account, which I think is over here, yeah, like, it takes me to the page, but it doesn't take me anywhere else. Also, this is where I oftentimes will simply, on every page you need an exit. And here I want this exit to take me back to the starting point. And it looks like, oh, well, that's not going to work very well because it's a hover. Now I'll explain what was going on. So this page this is a different page than this one. Okay, this has a hover effect on it, but I can't access this without being on the hover. So the moment I leave, it goes back to the other page. Here I can go back home, but without that hover effect, like I can't get there. So here, this page is broken because I can't go anywhere outside of it. I can go to create an account, and now with creating an account, at least I can get unstuck. But as we're clicking through, I need the ability to fill these things out. That's one. Two, once I hit create, I need to go somewhere. Okay, like there's got to be a place that this leads me to. Is it the meal page? Is it the account page? Like there's somewhere that this should dump me out. I'm gonna go ahead and hit fresh market. So let's come back and let's look at gluten-free. It says find a gluten-free meal. Okay, got it. I'm gonna view the menu because that's where the meals are. And you know, immediately, because I see steak bowl. All right. You're probably going to have an issue with users going, well, I'm not sure how to find a gluten-free meal. I would come through and add some food titles here, just different food titles, so that it, you know, it gives you're trying to, again, give the sense that you're actually going through a real thing. And then I'm going to go, oh, well, I see bread, but I also see salads and other things. Maybe if I filter and, oh, I bet it's this one right here. I bet if I hit gluten-free, and now only the gluten-free things show up. But again, you kind of need to have something positioned, you know, and I can see like a little bitty thing off of here. But here, you need to have information in here so that I can tell that, like, this has sorted by gluten-free. Because right now, the only thing that tells me it's sorted by gluten-free is this little option right here. And then you're asking me to add to find a gluten-free meal, and I could add it to cart. That's great, but it just says food item right now. So I would just take a half step forward, okay? Take a half step forward in your prototyping process and put some titles in here. You don't have to use images, you don't have to use color, but when you're asking people to do specific things and get a particular feedback back, they need to see that change displayed for them on screen. I'm going to come back over, find ingredients in a meal. Okay, so find ingredients in a meal. I'm going to, okay, I guess I'll go to login. And I'm going to, I've created a wormhole out, so I can back out of this, but also I would activate menu off the top bar, because view our menu and menu are basically the same thing. You're not asking yourself to do any more work. I would just be curious to know, like, do they click this or do they click that? Like, what do they naturally gravitate toward? And should this take you to the filtered gluten-free menu options? Like, how do they decide how do they find their way? What is their method of wayfinding? How do they read the page? Right now, you're being very prescriptive. I need to go to the menu, and that's the only way I can do it. So think about, like, all the different options that are on that home page and the different ways that they could get here. I'm gonna click on steak bowl, and on steak bowl, I can see the ingredients. Right? This is where, I think overall this is a pretty good pit, and this is something we've worked on a bit, but I think your organization here is pretty solid. If we add it to cart, now the steak bowl has been added, And now we're in this add item to cart, so that was pretty straightforward. It's interesting, like there is a interface tweak that can be made here that says okay, so here we're on the menu page, and I wonder if, not only do we need checkout here, but we need to identify that something has updated here in the cart. Maybe it's an icon, a one, or something's happened here. Maybe it's a dot. And this notification won't stay there. It's not persistent. It won't be there forever. So what I'm looking at is, does this ultimately fade into a version of this page that has, a version of the page that has that dot or whatever present on the cart? But I digress. I will follow with you, because obviously we want to check out. So let's go to the checkout phase. And this is where we have a problem. In that, I'm already logged in. I was logged in before. If we come back over, I was welcome Katie. Okay? So this idea that I've got to, for some reason, log in again. So here I'm going to check out, and some reason I think this may be where you're, okay, maybe this is the issue. So let's go to the checkout process here. So checkout, not on click, but on, while hovering, it's going to navigate to this shopping cart, and shopping cart on click would navigate up to here. That should only happen if I'm not logged in. Okay? But you've already been logged in. So I don't necessarily know if this flow works unless, you've got to map out, like, if they come in and you put them through the login phase, and we're over here on this screen and they are in fact logged in, and this may be a tweak where you've kind of gotten lost, because I see welcome Katie, and then up here I see cart login. So the question I have is, where am I at as a user in this prototype? Because I don't necessarily know, and it breaks down right here. Okay, but let's digress from that for a minute, because in this prototype, when we go to check out, we're here. Actually, let's go back. Yeah, now we've kind of busted it a bit. Let's add it to cart. Okay, and now you're logged in. I'm going to check out. And that's interesting, because it keeps bouncing. Let's sort out why it is bouncing. So I come in here. It's on this screen. I come in, and we need to preserve scroll position. Okay. So on hover, it's going to navigate to this other page. If we preserve scroll position, what that'll do is that'll say, instead of going back to the top, I want you to stay right here. So now when we scroll down, you see it doesn't do the bounce. Okay? So that's why preserve scroll position is important, because basically it's looking at these two pages going, oh, I'm just going to stay right where you're at. I'm just going to replace the whole page. And now you've got this interaction. Now if I click, it takes me here. But this is either at some point along the way, we've got to bust it flow, okay? Because in one area we magically sign in, and I think that's the issue. The issue isn't necessarily that we can't have the people sign in. The issue is that we jumped to a signed in state right here, okay? Because the prior screen, the user wasn't signed in, okay? So I think I'd fix this, and then I would leave this in place, okay? But you need to like pull that into alignment, otherwise it's going to throw some people off as they go through. So let's go ahead and do the thing again. I would like to, like, as I click, I want to fill that out. Like, you filled it out. It's weird. I clicked login, and I shouldn't click login for that to occur. I should click up here and then login become possible. So that flow is just a bit off. Now we're here in the shipping area, and I'm guessing I've got to select one. That's fine. I can choose payment. It says card on file. I'm almost certain that you've got something that's not part of. Okay, so this says enter new card, but it's not showing up. The question is why. As we go through, it's really weird. My entire house is shaking right now, and I don't necessarily know why. Checkout payment. Enter new card is just kind of floating out here by itself. What we need to do is figure out which of these checkout payments it's supposed to be part of. Okay. Do you see how it illuminates down in the lower left? It's the fourth one down. I'm going to drag that to the fourth one down. And that one says enter new card is there. And enter new card is here. It's interesting. I'm not sure why. Let's come back to the prototype. Yeah, that's interesting. Because you've clearly got enter new card. Oh, but it's not the fourth one down. It was the third one down. Oh, no, it was. Let's see here. Sorry, I gotta hide this. I wasn't completely certain. So enter new card is there. And it's also in here, but that one's not. Where is that one? Oh, interesting. Okay, so this enter new card needs to be here, but this enter new card is on the wrong page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, copy, delete, come back down, select this page, paste in place. So it's not ideal, but I'm just trying to help you sort out what's going on here. Now that should be, yeah, it's showing up now. All right, so now we can select card on file, and you can see it moved just slightly. So we'll want to tweak that. Let's review the order. Again, I'm not sure what's happening here. Wireframing. Oh, it looks like it's missing. Like it's missing altogether down here. Um, yeah. All right. So there are some tweaks that definitely need to be made, but overall, through. Okay. Yeah, it's a little rough in spots, Katie. Not gonna pull any punches there, but the flow is functional to a degree. But there's question like there's state changes that are involved that we need to like smooth out. Um, and I will say that this is where sometimes I have to come through and trying to manage this can be difficult. Okay, I'll just be completely honest with you. There are a couple of things that I can suggest, or I would suggest. One, sketching out on a sheet of paper. Two, and this is important, coming through and naming these files. Like right now, you have menu, 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 filter view, menu, error view. Like you've named some of them, like customize step 2, customize step 1. That's great. Login page, profile, login page, shopping cart, shipping, payment, shipping new address. So like you've added some level of clarity, but this should be like step 1, step 2, step 3, like something to help you see the flow. Because when you're in here and you're trying to figure out, okay, where is that piece is missing, which checkout payment does it belong to? There's 5 options. Okay, name these so you know where you're trying to drag, and like when you're trying to move these elements around, if you have a specific name, it's much easier to do. Okay, all right. That's where I'm going to leave it at for today. Luigi, Katie, great job. I know that each of you have things to work on in your own way, but I do think that this ultimately comes down to progress. How much progress is being made? And Katie, I see a lot of progress. I see the need for some file organization. And let's be honest, how many of us couldn't use more file? Raise your hand if you have perfect file organization, because I can't. I should never raise my hand. Okay, I need somebody to remind me. And the reason I remind you is that at some point you're going to be like Luigi, and you're going to begin to start collaborating with people who, maybe they work on the other side of the earth and they're part of the TikTok team. How crazy is that, Luigi? Fantastic. I'm so happy you're Luigi shifted gears off of one project and onto another one, and I think you made the right call. But otherwise, that's all I've got for this morning. I've definitely got some writing to do, so I'm going to go jump into that. Katie, I can't wait to see your updates. I'll leave a few notes. Luigi, I think you have my notes, and I saw that you were off and running onto that project call, so I'm gonna leave it there for you. And to the Eves and the Karas and the Rebeccas and the James and everybody else who Lisa, anybody else who I might have left out, I look forward to seeing your work tomorrow. All right. So once again, I'm Chris Courtney. This has been the Feedback Loop. I'll talk to you later. See ya.